Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing you a brand new review. And today I'm going to be reviewing Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, of course released in 2007, the final of the, well, not the Fox Fantastic Four films, but this attempt at doing the Fantastic Four films. And we are now days away from the Fantastic Four first steps releasing here in the UK and America. We're going to have a few videos on this. I'll detail those at the end of this, but yeah, I wanted to revisit these films because if you saw the first review I did on Friday for the 2005 film, I mentioned I'd follow that up with this one. I won't be doing a review for Phantom Four Stick. There's no way I'm going back to that one, but I've got a very different backstory with the Silver Surfer, and not in regards to life, but just in regards to watching this film when I'm younger, because I have very different memories to this than the first one. Granted, they're only 2 years apart, which is kind of crazy to think it was such a short amount of time. But before I get into that, I do want to hear from people's thoughts on this one. So please do comment your thoughts on this film and these Fantastic Four films, what you thought of them, if you liked them, if you didn't, if you grew up with them, if you've got that nostalgic factor. I spoke about that a lot in the last one. I probably won't talk about as much in this due to sort of personal reasons, which will be made sure when I go through my experience with this film. But yeah, let's do this. But I'm going to say, sorry, obviously we're doing the Fantastic Four stuff. I mentioned there's Fantastic Four videos coming. I can tell you the first one's going to be like Wednesday early hours UK, Tuesday evening America. But my memories of this film, I saw this film once in 2007 and I've never seen it again until yesterday. And that is a fact. I didn't have this on DVD. I have never gone back to see it when I was younger. I think I've got it on Blu-ray. I've got like a double pack with that and Fantastic Four, which I got many years ago from HMV. And I just, for whatever reason, never went back to this. I didn't care for this. And you look back at 2007 and there's still no MCU at this point in time. So I can't sit there and say my taste changed or what. I just didn't remember caring for this film when I first saw it at the cinema. And in my head, I'm just trying to sit here and scan my memories of this film. And I don't have any memory of that film on the big screen. I know the day. I remember being gutted. The Order of the Phoenix that came out in the UK. I wanted to watch Harry Potter. My parents hadn't seen The Goblet of Fire, and as we do, you know, I was almost, I think I just turned 11 years old. I just finished primary school, and yeah, we were taken to the cinema. We'd always go to the cinema at the end of the year, like as a family, and we were watching Fantastic Four, which is fine because as a family we liked the first one, and I did like the first one, and I just remember with this one not caring and nothing. I'm not unbeing memorable. I like the Silver Surfer in it, and I remember the trailer shot, but there was nothing about this that ever made me want to go back to it. And even in this, at the beginning of the PS3 era, I had the Fantastic Four PS3 game, and I remember Skrulls being in it. And obviously they hadn't been, you know, part of Fox. They technically never were, but we know, you know, there was Dark Phoenix originally was going to have Skrulls. We'll know that now. But I remember a PS3 game ever so briefly. I don't remember being a good PS3 game, but I remember it being one of my first ones. And yeah, it sort of came out, disappeared. Obviously, the series never continued. The MCU became a thing. Phantom Four Stick was made. And now the rights reverted back and we're waiting. So I don't have as much of a backstory to this. And that's kind of going to be, unfortunately, a big part of what I say, that I know I was very critical of the first one, and I think that was more being disappointed. Not that it didn't hold up, but you know, I mentioned that you go online a few years later and find out everyone hates something you loved. And this one I just remember not liking. I don't remember anyone else really ever talking about it. It really being brought up. Collectively, these two Fantastic Four films, they are spoken about positively by some echoes online, but very much it always seems to be the first one, not this one. And especially when we know we've got Galactus coming to the big screen in a couple of days, and you realise that, you know, in this film he was a giant cloud. That was it, Galactus the Cloud. And I was gobsmacked when I put the film on the other day, so it was 90 minutes. It was that short. I couldn't quite get over how short it was, and at the same time I remember a little bit about there being a wedding and other things, but yeah, my memory system was non-absorbent, so it felt like I was watching the film for the first time. And I'm going to be honest, that was also a problem. This film is very bad. It's far worse than the 2005 one. I understand why it didn't do. I mean, it was a hit technically commercially, but it grossed much less than the 05 version. Obviously, you know, you come out at the same time as a Harry Potter film. Certainly here in the UK, especially contextually 2007, you're going to get decimated. And Order of Phoenix is a much better film. And I guess you could also look at stuff like Chris Evans becoming Captain America. There was no time for them to come back together. They wouldn't want to do it, etc., etc. There were plans for a third film. But yeah, for me, contextually, this is not all that good. And even I break it down into the story of this one, and there's some ideas I really like that this one tries to explore, and it's very reminiscent of Spider-Man 2, but a far worse version, that they are struggling to balance the responsibility as being heroes with their own personal lives. Now, with these four having personal lives, you've got obviously the cocky Johnny, who deep down wants to settle down but can't find the right person. Ben, who is settling down, who's obviously fine. And you've got Reed and Sue wanting to marry, about to marry, and he can't make that commitment past being the scientist to her. So I don't mind the idea of that as a story, but where it kind of goes is so thin in regards to development, massive unpredictability, and everything you've seen in 100 different films before. It's very painful to sit through. And on top of this, you bring back Doctor Doom as a villain, who's been sat in a container for 2 years, and we know he's a villain, we know he's a megalomaniac, he's dastardly, he'll do some evil things, and he's going to get his opportunity to do so. So there's certain predictability, but then you get the Silver Surfer, who I remember seeing on the posters and the trailers, who I really like in this film. I know Lawrence Fishburne voices him. I know the physical performance is being done by, I think, Doug Jones. I could be wrong in that, just trying to memorise off my head. And I don't mind the Silver Surfer in this. I love the design of him. I like how it works, and especially for 2007, the VFX on this looks very, very good, especially when you're trying to bring in like a metallic reflection type character. I like what they do with the Silver Surfer. I like there's a bit of a backstory, but it feels so two-dimensional that he is just going to serve Galactus, and he's going to turn on him and save the day and redeem himself when he survives all along. And it's just so flat. And when Doctor Doom then re-rises as the villain with the surfboard at the end, I know that's based off comics. Now, yeah, it doesn't end up being a good film. And this is where I'm sort of a bit deflated doing this as a review, that there's not many highs to talk about with this. The characters don't have development. They have ideas to be developed, but unfortunately they're underdeveloped. I believe this film had a very, not troubled production, but a last-minute production. And they didn't know if they were going to have a voice in the Silver Surfer. They hadn't designed Galactus 4 months before the film came out, which probably explains why it's a cloud. And it just seems that this is probably a typical Fox, let's rush to get this out type thing, rather than have a bit of patience and see where it develops in the future, which I think really does show it doesn't hold up well. It wasn't good in 2007, and I can't imagine many younger people, comic book fans, going back to this, maybe this week with the new one coming out, and sat there thinking, yeah, this is great, it's going to be difficult to top it. It's like an open goal for the new film to be a better Fantastic Four film than what's come before, and then to have the 2015 version be so bad, I think has elevated this opinion of these films to some, that because a worse one came, they then start looking back. And this sort of happens in Bond sometimes. I don't mean to sort of, attack Bond in this, but some people got their favourites, many are known as being terrible, whatnot. But then there's like appraisals where people try and force, and I feel like Fantastic Four, people have tried it, but it's very quickly died historically. And there's understandable as to reason why this just doesn't really work as a Fantastic Four film. It doesn't work as a Doctor Doom film. As I said, it's got a positive, the Silver Surfer, but then of his attachment to Galactus, and that's not being followed through. The whole thing is just a convoluted mess that is slapped into 90 minutes. And I think that's where I'm in trouble. Even the late great Andre Braugher in this, playing General Hager, that was meant to be Nick Fury, and then they couldn't get the rights, but they just left it in as a character, as a general instead. And everything is so two-dimensional with this one. It just, it's not very good. But I've got one positive to say on this, and this is something I've really enjoyed. It's something people have spoken about before. I think, and this might be a controversial statement, I think this is Stan Lee's best cameo of all of the Marvel appearances he's done in his career. Now, Spider-Man 3 is one right up there for me as well. Obviously, I rank it both non-MCU ones, and he's appeared in so many. Someone's probably done a ranking video somewhere, but I really enjoy this one because he is playing himself. He's not on the guest list, and they refuse to believe that also is the real Stan Lee, which makes you think that in this world, the Stan Lee, the comic book writer, exists and has created heroes or done stuff for these. So I loved that as a little nod. It's a little fun thing, and I loved when these cameos would happen back in the day. And obviously, as we've got more and more Marvel films, they became sort of expected and did continue to happen until he passed away. So I really do like that scene. I really can't tell you much positive things. I don't like all the power swapping. I don't really care for that. I don't think it works as an interesting with regard to story. I'm glad it sort of is done by the end, and even when it gets to the final battle, it just doesn't even come across that well, because we've seen the 4 defeat Doom in the previous film, and now one of them having the 4 powers is going to do it. It's just not enticing as a viewer, and I think there's a few things they got wrong with this one. So that's all I can really say on this, if I'm being totally transparent. Like, there's not much more to say on this film. I've watched it once before yesterday. I'm definitely probably never going to go back to it again in my life. I'm excited, and I do like the fact that Chris Evans got to come back and play Johnny Storm as part of Deadpool and Wolverine. It worked for the function of that film. But I don't have anything else to add on these. I think looking back, you can see Jessica Alba was completely misused in these films. No development at all, just the epitome of the male gaze. Chris Evans, whilst is great and cocky as Johnny Storm, it never really feels anything more than that. Michael Chiklis, I do really enjoy as the Thing in these films. Some good comedy moments with him in this, with him and Chris Evans again, but again, you can't have a film just on them two doing a thing, and it's kind of where I sit with it, that I'm glad these films disappeared, really horribly said, almost 2 decades later, and it kind of makes me more excited for the new one, that revisiting these, realising what's been wrong before, I'm so hopeful that Marvel can get this one right. And if they get this new one right, then it's going to be an incredible experience for everybody involved, for the audience as well, for people that read those comics and grew up with them for decades, to see Marvel's first family back on the big screen. It's going to be a really exciting time, and knowing there's already talk of a sequel, knowing they're going to be in Doomsday, and I'm guessing Secret Wars, we're going to have them for a good chunk of the next few years, and of course new Doctor Doom as well. So very optimistic about the new film, and that's kind of going to round out this review of Rise of the Silver Surfer. So do comment, let me know your thoughts if you did like this film. I'm genuinely curious, but I really don't think many do, and that's why I'm rounding this one out. So as I said, we are previewing the new film. There's going to be a spoiler-free review on Wednesday. We'll be at the screening on Tuesday evening. There will then be a spoiler discussion next Sunday after the opening weekend, where we'll talk about everything. I'll be bringing on a friend who hasn't been on a video live before. He's been on a few of our top 10 videos, but I'm excited to bring a new face on the channel. So we will have some more videos. We're covering Fantastic Four, and we'll see what else comes after that point. Of course, we're heading into San Diego Comic Con as well. So that is me rounding out. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.